What's up, everybody? Welcome back to the Microcast. As usual, this episode is hosted by me, TJ David, and Zoe Rome.
On this week's episode, we're going to cover 11 guiding principles for athletes who want to pursue their potential. But first, we are going to get warmed up with a list of real foods and decide if they're hot or not on race day. I'm also just going to give a blanket statement that you shouldn't try anything for the first time on race day. That's a not hot rookie move from the jump.
That is a rookie move.
So just, these are all things. Actually, I don't even know if you want to try them. Some of these things I'm just going to go ahead and say not hot. Don't need to try them. Great in a fruit salad, great as an hors d'oeuvre, but not great as a performance fuel. Starting off, watermelon.
I'm not hot on watermelon.
Not hot, man. This is great in a fruit salad, not great on race day.
Why do they even put it out at aid stations?
I assumed it was a psyop to convince people that fructose is a superior fuel source.
I feel like that and orange slices are like remnants of, I don't know, like middle school soccer or something.
Yeah.
It's just, there's nothing in there that's going to help you get to the finish line.
Absolutely not. And I always see people going for that, which blows my mind because there's gummy bears right there. Or there's like actually like things that have fuel, like readily available carbohydrates in them. Okay. And then I've just never once been exercising and been like, you know what? I really need more acid in my stomach right now.
Oh, or more water without sodium.
Oh my God. Give me that sodium. Give me that water. Give me that fiber. Blow me up, Scotty.
Well, we already covered orange slices. I'm a no. I'm a no on
orange
too.
Slices. Anything that your mom would bring to soccer practice in 2001, I'm out.
Oh, we should have totally included bananas on this list.
I know, like that's something they always give away at like the finish line of races, and I'm a no to that also.
Right.
I want a taco. I want an ice cream sundae. Fuck the banana.
All right. Well, what about potatoes?
I'm pretty hot on potatoes. Oh. Again, that's like a readily available carbohydrate. You can salt it. It's got like a pretty neutral flavor profile. I think it's a great endurance fuel.
Yeah, potatoes, mashed, fries, whatever. Yeah,
boil them. Stick them in a stew.
How about Cliff Bars?
Not hot. Again, like
that's so dry.
This is just like my like nightmare. This is my like nightmare blunt rotation for snacks. Yeah, I can't even imagine eating a Cliff Bar while jogging. Jesus Christ, can't do it.
Okay, what about avocados? Haven't you heard of athletes like eating avocado toast?
Not avocado toast. We had an athlete that wanted to eat like an avocado because they were like very into the like, in heavy quotation marks here, Whole Foods sort of deal.
That is
I'm going to tell you, it is an entire food, but dear God, is that going to rock your world?
That's a lot of fat.
Yeah, it's a lot of fat and some fiber. I'm out on the avocado.
Fig Newtons?
Nope, I'm out.
You had
I had a strong
legendary quote in last week's episode.
It's been hotly debated in the microcosm Slack. The people have come out in favor of the Pop-Tart. Pop-Tart fans have spoken. They have overruled the like 2 to 3 Fig Newton fans, #Fig fans, sound off in the comments section. That's not a good cookie. That is a bad cookie.
Oh, they're so dry. But I will tell you, those people who love Fig Newtons, they love Fig Newtons.
Ugh.
And my sports dietitian, she recommended that I try Fig Newtons. They weren't for me. I tried them. I was able to get about 7, 8 of them down on the treadmill. And then after that, I was like, these are
at the end of the day, like whatever flips your nutritional skirt is fine by me. But I would invite everyone to join me and the Pop-Tart Mafia in having fun, in loving ourselves, and eating abundant carbohydrates.
Fig Newtons and Pop-Tarts are both rich in carbohydrates.
Yeah, I know, but Pop-Tarts are just better. They're just better. They have icing. They're better in every way.
I will say this. I was training. I got off the treadmill.
Yeah.
And I went and ran on the trails.
Yeah.
And Pop-Tarts are extremely difficult to keep from crumbling and just exploding everywhere while you're running.
Do you know the story about why the graham cracker was invented?
No.
It was invented by, like, in the 1800s by, like, the guy who did, like, the Post cereal company, and he invented it because he believed, like, as like a very like sort of conservative gentleman, that America needed snacks that would prevent people from getting horny and that would quash feelings of passion and desire. And that is why the graham cracker was invented. And I believe the Fig Newton is onto something there as well, because nothing robs my body and my brain of any kind of desire, joy, intention towards human connection quite like a Fig Newton.
How does your body respond to the quesadilla?
Love a quesadilla.
Mid-race quesadilla?
Absolutely not.
Absolutely not.
Absolutely not.
But post-race quesadilla?
All in, baby.
All in. Okay.
That's a good food. That's like a food that, like, I feel like for every Fig Newton you have in life, you need to counter it with at least twice as many quesadillas.
And what about pizza?
Mid-race, I'm out on that. That's a lot. There's a lot going on there. But I do believe pizza is the most perfect food ever invented.
But not the most perfect performance food.
No. Yeah, I'm a no on that. Although I do remember at Run Rabbit, someone had like taken one of the uni pizza ovens out to the Continental Divide, and they were slinging pizza. And I did grab a very small slice.
Very small.
Very small. Like a little, like a tapas slice.
Yeah. Well, a little bit of fat, a little bit of protein, maybe every 4 or 6 hours or something in a long event can be helpful. But we're not talking about a quesadilla at every aid station.
No,
pizza
that's troubling. Yeah.
That's a GI disaster.
That's a GI disaster. Yeah. I mean, it's like, good frat party food, but maybe not ideal performance.
Lastly, what do you think about the chip?
I love a chip. I'm all in on the chip. It's salty. It's crunchy. It's got a little bit of fat. It's got a good bit of carb. I like the chip.
Are you all in on the Oreo?
I do like an Oreo. I sometimes can struggle to eat them during races.
Dry.
It's pretty dry.
Goes into the dry category.
Exactly. And then you're sort of in the position of like how at like fancy wineries they'll do pairings. I have struggled to find the correct hydration mix to pair with the Oreo so that I don't asphyxiate while running.
You know what isn't dry?
What?
Morton gels.
Oh, I can't. Oh, it tastes like something you would use to clean your shower. I do not like. It tastes like the idea of a donut. It tastes like the ghost of a donut. It tastes like when you wake up in the morning and you're alone in bed, but there's like a shallow impression of someone who used to love you who left. That's the like empty space that Morton leaves behind in my palate.
That's disappointing because it's one of the best endurance fuels that I've tried.
Yeah, but you don't like savor it.
Hell no. You're out there to race. You're not out there to enjoy your food. You're out there to race. Some
right. But like I take in a bunch of different cola flavored things and I'm like, oh yeah, this is fine.
Those cola goos do not taste like Coca-Cola.
They taste cola adjacent.
That's like the ghost of Coca-Cola.
Yeah. Well, so like I had
shadow self of
Coca-Cola. It is the shadow self of Coca-Cola. I had a Diet Dr. Pepper yesterday, which is the most cursed beverage I've ever had. And they taste better than that.
Okay. Well, you've heard it here.
Yeah.
Basically,
I know that
potatoes,
people, yeah,
Pop-Tarts, and chips.
Yeah. People come to this podcast for exactly 9 minutes worth of superficial food takes, and we delivered.
And for you Fig Newton fans out there, we love and accept you.
Yeah, get figged. That's all I have to say.
All right. Let's get into
Pop-Tart Mafia, rise up in the comments. You know who you are.
Listen, we will have a debate on what flavor of Pop-Tart is the best.
I feel like we should do a March Madness bracket for Pop-Tart flavors.
Is it cherry or blueberry? No. Is it strawberry?
I really like the really absurd, like white trash flavors, like Sunday s'mores, or like Kylie turned me on to the chocolate chip pancake.
Okay, that one is terrible. It is
love
so
that
dry.
one.
You could never eat that in a hot race.
They're all the same amount of dry. There's not like a moist tart.
Yes, of course, the jelly-like filling.
They all have the same.
That's what does it.
They're just like us. They're all the same on the inside.
No. No way.
You think that the cherry Pop-Tart is additionally moist?
I think the fruit-flavored Pop-Tarts are more palatable because they are more moist.
You've sampled all the Pop-Tarts. You've sampled many. You're
I've
a
done
connoisseur.
a lot of treadmill runs.
You are a Pop-Tart sommelier.
Yes.
And you're here on the podcast claiming the fruit ones
best
have a moister mouthfeel.
They are the best. They have a better mouthfeel.
Fascinating.
Not quite as good as Spindrift during a race,
well,
but we're getting
close. Well, that's actual liquid, and the Pop-Tart it's a tart. They're all very dry.
God, they are so dry, which is again why I ask, why do we have to eat real foods in order to perform well?
It's so I think it's, just to drop into coaching mode a little bit, I think it's great for athletes to, I always call it expanding the bullseye of what your gut can tolerate, because no matter, like, especially if you are like, well, wow, I've never had a GI issue, I can eat whatever I want while running, there will come a day where that will not be the case. And it's always great to know what kind of things you can reach for, especially for longer events. Like, your stomach can go, maybe gels aren't sitting very well anymore, especially during 100-mile races or races that last longer than like 8-9 hours. Getting some things in that have a little more sustenance and then have a slightly higher, but still not very high, amount of protein and fat can be helpful.
Yeah. Well, no need for real foods if you just
I tried to eat a picky bar. The only like real food that I really tried to eat. I couldn't do it. Also, this is wild, but like my teeth started to hurt so bad during that race from all the sugar I had consumed that I couldn't bite down on anything.
You get lockjaw from eating something like that.
I thought I was gonna, I just couldn't, like, it physically hurt my teeth. So I spit it out on the trail.
Man.
It was not good.
No good.
No good.
Mashed potatoes.
Yeah.
That's as close to a real food gel substitute as you can find. Like a really creamy mashed potato.
Yeah.
All right, let's get into our principles. We've got 11 principles for athletes who want to pursue their potential.
So, Coach TJ, how did you start to think about, and we sort of developed these together, but you really brought the heat with some of your principles, and I'm curious where these came from. Like, you didn't just pull them out of thin air. How did you think about developing these 11 principles?
Well, first of all, I was thinking like, well, I think we need to have something where each principle builds on the principles that come before it.
Mm-hmm.
So this is like a combination of building self-awareness, which is integral in the process of becoming an athlete who's capable of pushing their potential and pursuing it. But also, we need to consider what are the fundamentals that athletes kind of like have to nail and check the box each day. What are the things that they need to focus on to help avoid the pitfalls in the process of, like, for example, like if I'm racing my workouts, that's a surefire way to injury or burnout or some kind of
not progressing.
Yeah, not progressing. So like there's certain things in here that, are helpful for athletes who are like, use these as guiding principles, that are going to help you to stay on the right side of your training. And ultimately this lends to more consistency and more progress over time.
Cool. Yeah. Love that. Yeah. I feel like for me, this is just a really nice sort of zoomed out way to present some, a few different frameworks for athletes to experiment with in their lives.
Let's start with the first one. Know your why.
So why is this important?
Well, this is the foundation, I think, for everything when it comes to being an athlete. If you don't understand what you are doing, why you're doing it, what your purpose is, it's very difficult to sustain anything long term.
Yeah.
Particularly, like, we can look at this through the lens of endurance sports and running in particular. Like, it's not always fun to go out and run. So some days feel better than others. Like, getting good at running takes, a really long time. And so if you're not clear on why you're doing it, it's going to be really easy for you to not get out the door on the days where you need to get out the door. Like, this is the bedrock of everything. Like, if you don't know why you're out there doing it, you're like a ship lost at sea. Like, what's the point?
I would also say it is okay to have periods where your why shifts, or maybe where you don't feel as in touch with the why. I feel like that is normal as well. You don't always have to wake up every day and be like, oh, I cannot wait to connect with my community. Let's freaking go. That's not how I feel. And I still manage to get the work done. But I feel that knowing the why becomes increasingly important when you need to draw on it during hard times, right? Like maybe that's during the tough times during a race. Maybe that's when you are really struggling to self motivate, and the why can step in and be that sort of inertia that propels you along your vision.
Yeah, and like your why can be very broad, right? Like you can have some part of your why can be like engaging with the community, another part of your why can be like I like doing hard things. So and it can be on a spectrum of all of those things. So ideally, over time, your why expands, and you don't have such a narrow view of who you are, because that's when when your self concept becomes really narrow. That's when you can have trouble when you lose
Right.
motivation and everything. So
What's
this is you
your,
develop this over time, you
yeah.
know.
How do you develop your why?
I think you develop your why by a few different things. One, I think it all kind of roots from mindfulness, at least for me, on being aware of who you are, what your values are, what your likes and dislikes are, what your interests are. That's that's where it comes from. You know what your purpose is.
For me, I really like to reflect on when I feel motivated by what I'm doing and when I feel very connected to it. And then I notice when I don't feel connected to it, when I feel out of step with what I'm doing or when I feel demotivated. And I use that as neutral information to help me move closer to my why.
Well, don't spoil our later on principles with
I'm
those
not, I'm just telling
that
people how to get
neutral
to the
thinking.
why. Um, Also, your why doesn't have to be a big fancy thing. It doesn't have to
Yeah.
be because you want to save the world or do, it doesn't have to be anything. I think that, a big thing I see with athletes is they should themselves with the why, um, rather than being genuinely curious about what actually authentically motivates them.
Right, like they often create a why a bit more based on what they think other people will think is cool and
Right.
interesting, and there's a lot of judgment rooted in that. So when you are creating your why, you know, nothing's off limits.
Nothing. Yeah.
The next level, be clear about your long-term vision. What do you want to achieve as an athlete? Who do you need to become in order to achieve those things? This is so important.
So this is a chunky one. How do you clarify your long-term vision? And what is a long-term vision? Like, what does that actually mean?
I think a long term vision is probably a 3 to 5 year vision
Mm,
for yourself as an athlete, looking out into the future, forgetting about how do I accomplish these things, forgetting about I don't know, you know, if I'm capable or not, trying to put those things aside and kind of navigate around them and create a very idealized version of yourself and what you want to achieve and who you want to become ultimately as a person. I like for my athletes to look at this from a really holistic perspective first. Like, you know, the goals are an easy vehicle into your vision, because it's like in 3 years, I want to be able to run 100, you know, like
mm,
some that stuff is like pretty prevalent out there. But at the same time, you know, I think the more important questions is like, for athletes is like who do you want? Oh, I want to be really healthy, or I want to be really fit. I want to be able to uh, adventure when the time is right, and I don't want to be sidelined by injury. Like I want to always be ready to be my best, or you know, I want to be able to in 3 years be pushing the podium or whatever. You know, so it's about like zooming out really
mm-hmm.
far into the future and starting to determine what are some of those bigger things that you're after.
Right. And building an identity around that.
The second piece to that is asking yourself, who do I have to become to achieve this? Because when you have an aspirational goal, it's going to ask of you to transform in
Mm,
some fundamental way in order to achieve that. Because if it wasn't, it wouldn't be a big vision. Like it wouldn't be big. It wouldn't be big at
right.
all. Likely you'd be able to accomplish that thing now.
So if you could stay the same person, you need to dream. You need to vision bigger.
Yeah, a lot bigger. And get scared about your
Mm,
vision. Like it should be something that is kind of like, oh my God, you
okay.
know, like, can I really do that?
Yeah, I want to pick at this one a little bit more and see if we can make it more specific. Do you feel comfortable sharing what your long term vision is?
In what area? I have
Whatever
many
area
visions.
you want to, whatever you feel comfortable sharing.
Sure. Well, when I talk about vision, I put it in a first person perspective.
Right. Well, this is your
So,
vision, so that makes sense. It'd be
right.
very weird if you were like
Well,
TJ dreams.
no, it's actually a lot of people put it in, they don't put it in the present tense. That's what I mean. I
Mm,
mean, put it in the present tense when you're creating the vision.
okay.
Like, try to live into this is me now.
Mm,
For example, I'm running 2 to 3 of the most competitive races every year, and I'm pushing for the podium in those events. I'm training from a very healthy place, mentally and physically, pursuing a harmonious balance between my work and my athletic lives. I'm also going to 2 to 3 really big races in support of my athletes or in support of you, Zoe, to help other people become, accomplish their visions. And, throughout that process, I'm becoming a thought leader in what I do as a coach and as an athlete. And I'm on, the most popular podcasts, and I'm on panels, and I'm writing a book and whatever. And the list just
hmm.
goes on and on and on. And it's like super idealized. Like, oh, I don't know I'm going to do half of those things. Like,
Fucking anyone can write a book. It's so, whatever. Who do you need to become to achieve that?
well,
So, like, looking at your, like, again, using yourself as an example, what do these sort of identity shifts look like for you?
sure. So I need to have less focus on what other people think of me. I need
It's a good one.
to, yeah, I need to be more in alignment with my values rather
Mm.
than being in control, being at the
Shooting
mercy
yourself.
of other people's thoughts and what I think is going on with them. I need to be more vulnerable
Mm.
in my ability to put my thoughts and ideas out there. Those are just two things, those are kind of, I think other things, when you create the vision and you understand that there's a way of being attached to that, the who do I want to become? Who do I need to become to accomplish this thing? Um, there's something you need to focus on. My focus is growth. You have to have a quality of being or like a feeling that is
Right.
associated with that. Mine is alignment. That's where my mind and my body act as one. And the most obvious example I have of that in my life is like when I'm in a really great coaching session or a really great race, where I feel just totally present. And then you need to also have your beliefs or your thoughts that are in alignment with that. And this is where a lot of people get stuck when they're thinking about vision,
Hmm. Why do they get stuck?
because their thoughts don't support where they need to go. I couldn't possibly accomplish this, or I don't know enough, or I'm not good enough to pursue this, or any of those thoughts. So what you need to do is you need to reconstruct those thoughts in a way that supports where you want to go. I am capable of this, or I can learn all that I need to learn in the time that it's going to take me to achieve this vision, or I am capable of more than I believe. Whatever, you reconstruct your thoughts to support that. And anytime you have a thought that does not, we're getting kind of a little too much into the how. I want to stick to the vision, but
I think it's important for it to be specific, right? Like
specifics are good.
these principles only work if people really understand how to apply them.
Well, work with me one on one, and I'm going to teach you that.
Right, but I mean, people don't listen to the podcast just to hear.
I don't want to give
hey,
it all.
sorry.
I don't want to give it all away. But I will say that when you're creating your vision, do not get stuck in thinking small.
Mm.
Think as big as you can. The more outlandish, the more idealized, the scarier it is, the better. Um, it's really easy to get stuck in the how. I don't know who I need to be yet to figure this out. Or I don't know how I'm going to figure this out. I'm not competent enough. I don't have that degree or I don't have that experience to get to where I want to go. Forget about all of that for a while. That's what, the coaching or mentorship or figuring out a plan later is about. You coach to the middle later to develop that plan and the competence over time to achieve what you want to achieve. You have to start with the vision. You make it as clear as possible. Okay, so I said 2 to 3 big races a year. Great. What races are those? I want to run UTMB, I want to run Western States, and I want to run Hard Rock 100 every year. Okay, cool. That's crazy. Why would you want to do 300s in a year? Well, that goes back to my why and
Mm.
my values. And that's actually not necessarily my vision, but
Right.
it was just an
Yeah,
example
your poor
of like a
quads.
really crazy vision. Some people have that, but
Courtney.
right, exactly. And I can tell you, she's not thinking small when she develops her vision for herself as an athlete. It's the same thing. Like, you don't, like, Olympians don't somehow be involved in training and then one day be like, yeah, I'm going to do the Olympics next week.
Mm-hmm.
They start with the vision of and the dream of, I'm going to the Olympics. And then they work for 20, 10, 20 years or whatever to develop the competence to do that. So it's like reversing the process.
Mm.
If you don't know where you want to go, what are your thoughts, words, habits, routines? What are they in service of? Nothing. Likely they're in service of what other people are doing out there in the world, because
Right.
you're not in alignment with who you are fundamentally. So that's the purpose of the vision, to have something that you can align your thoughts, words, and actions to every day. It's like having a North Star.
Mm-hmm.
Like, that's where I'm going.
Right.
I think what's important about this next principle, the commitment to excellence, is that it rests on both of those first two principles.
Mm.
You have to know why you're doing this. You have to know
Right.
what you're doing is in service of, what is that greater vision.
Right. Like, it's very hard to be excellent, like, in a vacuum for no reason.
Right,
Right.
exactly. You have to know what you're committed to. And at the end of the day, you have a vision, right? You know your why. The only certainty that you have is your commitment to pursuing that at the highest level you
Mm-hmm.
possibly can. That's all you get. Your vision is never going to be certain. Nothing in life is certain. I don't know what's going to happen. I don't know what you're going to say next. But all I can say is what I'm committed to. I'm committed to these thoughts, words, and actions. I'm committed to pursuit of excellence, discipline, and motivation. Somewhere in there, maybe those are things that now I don't need to rely on because I'm actually committed to other things. So, talk to me about commitment in our third principle.
Yeah, so this one is really meaningful to me because I feel that one of the things that really separates great athletes from just okay athletes is the reliance on motivation or discipline. Whenever I hear an athlete say things like, "I just need to be more disciplined," or like, "I wasn't feeling motivated," I feel that those are rookie crutches, frankly. A commitment to excellence means, like, I wake up every day and regardless of how I'm feeling, I'm gonna try, right? And does that mean I go at 110% every day? No, it does not. Resting intentionally can also be is necessarily a part of committing to excellence. And so I think that, whatever, if you're just like waiting to like wake up and feel out of nowhere, like, aha, I feel very inspired to be excellent today, or I feel inspired to get the training done today. Well, great for that day, but what about all the other days? You got to show up every fucking day.
I agree 100%. And I think you laid that out really well. Commitment, when you really do commit to excellence, you're committing to the thoughts, words, and actions that you need to be in alignment with each day in order to achieve what you want to achieve.
Right.
And that totally circumnavigates this over reliance on being disciplined and being motivated.
Totally. I feel that discipline and motivation are temporary supports that folks can use until they get their systems in order. But unless you have, like, if you feel every day that you need to be disciplined to get things done, your systems are failing. You need to streamline your systems and you need to realign your way of being so it doesn't feel like you're white knuckling your way through life and training. Like, if it feels like every day you have to wake up and like exercise tremendous discipline to do the basics of training, to do the basics of your commitment to excellence, I think that you need more supportive systems. So that might mean rethinking what time of day you run, where you run, who you're running with. Find ways to minimize your reliance on discipline, your reliance on motivation, because those things will fail you. But your commitment is a decision. It is not a feeling, and it will not fail you.
So let's tie that into our fourth principle here, because as we're kind of going up the pyramid, again, I think goals are really appropriate to insert in here,
Mm,
because athletes who are over reliant on discipline and motivation, often they're not setting goals that are really appropriate for them. And then because of those goals, right? Like the goal is probably too much of a leap.
right.
They don't quite have the competence or the experience yet to pursue the goal. And so they feel a disalignment between their way of being and what the goal is asking them to do in order to be prepared. So then the plan isn't purposeful enough. And so the key here, the key principle is you need to select goals that are a not a direct match for your current skills, but are a logical step, not a leap.
Yeah, I feel like it should be a stepping stone towards your vision. Big mistakes I see athletes making is they think putting a goal on the schedule is going to change who they are and how they show up in the world.
Right.
And that has just never once worked. If you are inconsistent and you try to plop a 50K on the calendar to inspire you to get more consistent, you're setting yourself up for failure, stress, and burnout and injury, frankly. So I think a much better way to think about this is like goals are set from a place of where you are of or like maybe one or two steps in front of where you currently are. Vision is way down the road and a goal can be a bridge to help you get there, but it should not be like 50, it shouldn't be really far away. It should be reflective of who you currently are, and it should not be hyper aspirational.
That's right, because it takes time to shift your way of being and to work into who you need to become. A transformation takes time. So if you try to rush that process, it can feel really unnatural, and a lot of athletes in doing
Yeah.
so end up burned out, even if they achieve that goal. In my coaching experience, those athletes have a really tough time after the race pursuing anything else
Yeah.
after, and then that is not a service to the
Totally.
greater vision.
Yeah. Set goals from who you are today, and your vision can reflect that future self that you want to work towards.
So our fifth principle, focus on the basics. I think this is the perfect opportunity to insert that, because we have our goal. We understand who we are working to become. We understand that we're committed to the thoughts, the words, the actions, the habits. We're committed to excellence in that way. We know what this is all in service of in our why. But then there's all this stuff out there. It's just like, oh yeah, this quick hack or this quick fix. But what are like maybe two or three basics that athletes should really be focused on, rather than trying to kind of like shortcut their way to where they want to go?
Consistency, mental and physical health, recovery would be the big ones for me.
Yeah, I think so too. Absolutely.
Like, trying to be excessively fat adapted or trying to like do whatever like weird Elon Musk Twitter bro thing is trending recently, or like your friend from the run club read a survey about how eating nothing but or read a study about how eating nothing but bananas can help you build your VO2 max. No. Like none of that. You don't need any of that.
Right. Or like really like challenging weird strength training routines that
Yeah,
are
like,
like out there
oh,
on the
I
internet.
gotta lift super duper heavy out of nowhere,
Yeah. I feel like
I
that
gotta drink like whatever water my chiropractor is selling.
I feel like there's so much, but athletes really, again, it's like do the work each day, get good sleep, focus on your nutrition. I mean, if you can just nail those three
Yeah,
things, you're on the right track.
totally. And I often see the athletes that are the most confident in the work they're doing and they're confident in their vision, those are the people less likely to fall for hacks. The people who I see that are the most prey to some of the stupidest shit out there are the people who might become disconnected from their why. They're putting goals that are like way too far down the road, that are way too aspirational. They are losing confidence. They're not connected to the work in a way that inspires confidence and self beliefs. So they have to rely on silly hacks.
Right. And just to I hate the use of confidence, but they lose trust
Trust.
in themselves because they're not doing
I
that
think the
work.
workouts can be a way of building confidence.
Sure.
That is true for me.
Well, it's really trust, because confidence is a feeling. Trust is like, oh, I know what to do because I've done that work.
Mm-hmm.
So I always like to differentiate between those two things. It's like, oh, hell yeah, if I've got confidence right now, I'm going to freaking use that. Definitely. But I can tell you what, like, I've been doing this for 10 years and I don't always feel confident.
Yeah, I don't think anyone always, if anyone says they always feel confident, they're either missing a vital part of their brain or they're lying to
They're
you.
hacking.
But I think it is an okay thing to feel and to notice when you feel it. That is good information.
Yeah. And if you've got it, use it. All right, let's get into some of the guiding principles here around like executing in your training.
Easy days easy, hard days hard, and they're hard on purpose.
Yeah, I love this. It reminds me of Kipchoge because I was reading something that he an interview that he had done a couple years back, and he had mentioned that he never exceeds more than like 80 or 90% of his capability on his hard days, on his
Yeah.
workouts. And I was like, you know what? That's sustainability.
Yeah.
Because if you go 100% on every workout, what's going to
You're way
inevitably
overshooting
happen?
the effort level.
Yeah, that's crazy. You're not looking out, you're not zooming out to the future. You're being very myopic in that approach, way too zoomed in. And it almost kind of gets into that thing of like, I'm racing these workouts or I have to prove to
Yeah.
myself. But keep it to the basics. Like
Yeah.
easy days are supposed to be easy. Like there's some fundamental things we know in endurance sports, running, skimo, whatever it is, triathlon. Like
Yeah.
there's not a lot of information about how to get better. There are so many different there's so much minutia around like this intervention or this intervention, but what we know by looking at the meta-analysis is like if you do
And decades
easy,
of it,
yeah,
by the way.
right, easy days easy and hard days hard, you're going to get better over time.
Yeah, I think the biggest mistake I see sort of newer and new intermediate runners make, or runners who feel like they're stagnating or plateauing, is they're doing their hard days too easy and their easy days too hard. It's very hard to go too easy on your easy days.
Oh my gosh. And I've really gotten into the habit with a lot of my athletes of prescribing like forever effort miles.
Yeah.
Just for the sole purpose of trying to get people to go easier on those easy days, because it's so easy to be at like the top of zone 2
Yeah.
all the time on those easy efforts, and then the impact forces are more substantial and
right.
the
I think like
aerobic strain
sometimes
is greater.
people think like, again, like all of the like it's these things are always shifting targets. Like your zones are not like set in stone the day you're born, and like if you creep out of zone 2, a dragon's not going to swoop down out of the sky and take you away. You're not going to get zapped on the spot by Lord Zeus. So like if you go a little hard, that's good information for you to use to recalibrate your effort level in a more honest way.
So something that we've been thinking and talking a lot about is the 7th principle that we have here around shifting our focus from proving to improving. Talk to me about the importance of that.
I think so often people see things, I mean, like anything, like there is nothing you are doing right now that should be primarily about proving, right? You're not audition. Like even I, as a performer, like when this is a big conversation we had in our household when I was working on the pilot season of this TV show, I was driving myself crazy and not doing a very good job because I felt like I had to prove myself on every single episode. And I ended up coming off like really crazy and stiff and unlikable, and shifting my focus to like, you know what? I'm actually just going to use each episode as an opportunity to improve my performance. Like, screw the outcome. I've just got to be focused on what I'm doing today. And lo and behold, as soon as I committed to doing that, we got renewed for a second season, when I was originally told that I should be not counting on that.
Well, let me just say, awesome job
reconstructing
thank you. Your thoughts and beliefs around proving versus improving and the shift to the growth mindset. Because that is hugely powerful, because when you're in a state of proving, you are automatically coming from a place of I'm not enough, I don't have what it takes, I lack something. Proving means you lack something. So when you shift to improving, that is the exact opposite mentality. You're now coming from that place of abundance or a more infinite part of who you are.
You're free to perform is
Yeah,
the way I think of it. You're not shackled by the burden of proof. You're free to perform. So this is a big thing I see come up for athletes on things like workouts. Whenever people are like, oh, I gotta, like, every work has to be faster than the last, or like, I've got to get this Strava segment. The mentality of proving will oftentimes result in worse outcomes. Not to mention, again, risk of injury, burnout, all the, sort of goblins that we harp on about a lot here. Moving your focus to the idea of improving offers a lot more flexibility, a lot more sustainability. And again, like, that is what we are. There is no end goal here, there
right.
is no second season of life. There is nowhere that we are going. There is no destination. All we have is the work we're doing.
Mm-hmm. So, in that process, our eighth principle, practice patience and non judgment. I think this is
I hate it.
incredibly important. You hate
I
it.
feel personally victimized by the eighth principle.
But think about how important that was in your process of moving from a place of proving to improving. As much as you don't want to admit it, probably, when you feel like you have to prove, you're also judging yourself. And if you're
Right.
in that place, it's very hard
Yeah.
to do what you need to do to like have that transformative experience for the audience on the stage doing what you do. It's
True.
so
And
hard.
and patience, I think, is a big thing for me and for a lot of athletes, because patience is like a big should. I should be here, not where I actually am. And it's sort of like something that clouds us from seeing where we currently are, because all we can see is sort of a misty vision of where we think we should be or where other people think we should be. And that's where poor decisions get made. And that's where people feel disconnected from the work they're doing. They feel burnt out. They feel like they lose their intention because they don't know where they actually are. And being patient necessarily means that you are where your feet are. You know
Right.
where you are.
And you know where you're going. And, when I think a lot of patience and non judgment, it's easier for athletes who have been doing this for longer because they've weathered more storms. They
Yeah.
have gone through more difficult times and they understand that, those challenges often become building blocks and they
Yeah.
have that kind of improving growth or curiosity kind of all in the same circle in my mind there. They kind of have that shift happening all the time when things are difficult. But an issue and a reason why we've really placed this particularly at number 8 on this list is because, when we're going through the easy days, keeping them easy, we're, being purposeful in our workouts, when we're working on improving, when we're pushing ourselves and being on the edge in the pursuit of excellence, our vision, and ultimately in alignment with our why, we get hurt. Stuff happens. The process is not linear.
Yeah.
And I've seen a lot of athletes make mistakes through not being patient and being overly judgmental of themselves. I've been in those
Yeah.
shoes many times myself, and I've made decisions that weren't in the best alignment with my vision. That it created situations for, I'll speak for myself for a second, where it's like, oh, I should have just like taken more time off. Now I have to take weeks off, or
Mm-hmm.
I should have just like not raced that race. Now I feel worse mentally. Now I had
Yeah.
a bigger reckoning moment than I really
Yeah.
was capable of having, um, or was ready to have. It's like, oh shit, I just totally did that to myself.
Yeah.
And I could have just been, I could have just loosened my grip, had a little bit of a bigger, not less narrow identity around certain parts of this process, and be patient. Like,
Yeah.
you will get to where you want to go. um but the key is to not judge yourself about where you are
Correct.
today in
Yeah.
that process.
Yes. Awareness is key. Judgment, not a key.
Not a key.
Not a key.
That's not going to unlock the
No one's ever
door.
like, oh my God, I'm just like so glad I judged my, like, now that I'm judging myself, I can really get
Well,
some
think
good
about
stuff
how we
going.
mask judgment. We mask it with self-evaluation, and we're super hard on
Because
ourselves.
self-evaluation can't, like, it's a vital tool to be able to assess and self-evaluate from a healthy and informed place, from a place that promotes positive forward action, right?
Right.
Like we're not just here to pat ourselves on the back and say "Yas, Queen" at the end of every day. Like that's the tough part, right? Like, is there is no Snapple cap solution to like non-judgment. Great, now you can win Western states. Like, no, there's a lot of really sticky gray zones here where you do have to look at information that trusted other people are giving you, the information that you're giving yourself. Like, this does not mean a get out of, mental jail free card. It means a much more complex and nuanced wading into the information you're getting.
So I like that because you just segued me into number 9.
Love this
Feelings
one.
can be more informative than numbers. Talk to
Yeah.
us about that.
So I think that there, especially in runners, is a tendency to think that numbers are truth when numbers at best are also just, I mean, numbers are actually just an approximation for your body's understanding of stress, right? 10 miles like is not a real thing. Like in some ways it is, right? But like
Right.
it's an approximation for how much stimulus your coach thinks your body needs to progress or to, to positively move forward.
Yeah.
So there's, because we assign things in numbers rather than just like vibes or like by emoji or whatever, runners can really latch onto numbers and start to incorrectly assume that they are the end all be all. This can be things like your watch is dumb, like recovery score, the VO2 max score, the Strava fitness trend thing. Really, any number is only ever going to be an approximation of information that you should always be checking in with your body to actually see how you feel. I know we all crave external sort of like, okay, well, I know I feel good, but like I would love it if the numbers told me that as well. Unfortunately, those things are all going to be really, really flawed, right? Like how many people have had a great night's sleep, but as soon as they wake up and their phone or their watch says, it wasn't the best night ever, do you actually feel worse? And that's not me just like vibing. This is something that is studied. This is like diabolical. The researchers like fucked with people's watches to give them all negative sleep scores, and people who had otherwise good nights of sleep woke up, saw the fucked sleep score, and were like, oh no, I had a bad night of sleep, when they actually had a good night of sleep. We have all gotten so bad at trusting ourselves and trusting data that should be one thing that we're paying attention to, but it is not the end all be all.
Yeah. And again, if you're an athlete struggling a little bit with this, or you've seen this come up in your post run reflections on your training, pause and just rewind. Your feelings are more important than what the numbers say.
Yeah.
It's great when the numbers kind of like come into alignment with how you feel, but that's not always going to happen. And I've yet to really see any kind of black box algorithms that actually are really helpful to go off of for athletes.
And trust your body. Your body is super smart. If your body feels tired, that's great information. Right. If it feels good, that's great information. If something feels harder than normal, that's great information. Learning to be more attentive to those feelings is an essential skill for advanced athletes.
So another essential skill, number 10, stress is stress.
Stress is stress.
The body does not know the difference between a mile run and an argument with your partner.
Arguments with me are much more like a 10K, if I may flatter myself.
High stress.
Yeah.
Not a 5K.
You're going to need 3 days off.
To be a sure. Max stress.
Dude. I am a 50K of an argument. You're going to be fucked. You're going to have DOMs from any encounter with me if I'm upset.
Good thing I don't know how to argue.
Yeah, it's true. It's really upsetting because I was a JV debate champ and TJ just is a Zen Buddha. Zen is a Buddha, little baby Buddha over here.
Stress is stress, though. Stress is stress.
Yeah.
We think that this is an important principle, just because we take a holistic approach to training.
Mm-hmm.
You're not doing your training in a vacuum. Nobody is. Even professional athletes at the highest level have other stresses that impact their training. And if you aren't aware of that and don't listen to, again, go back to number 9, listen to how you feel and respond to those things with your vision, the long term in mind, it can lead to challenging outcomes. I don't think we need to harp on this one too much, But a great dial that we have as athletes that we can tone down when stuff is getting stressful is the training stress knob. We
Mm-hmm.
often can't change
I know.
a
I wish
tough
I could swoop into
argument.
people's lives and be
Yeah.
like, boom, childcare, boom, better husband, boom, kids for that are 4 years older.
Yeah, like more flexibility at work or,
Yeah,
anything, any of those
boom,
things.
your
But
puppy is trained. Boom,
it's,
your boss doesn't suck.
again, I
Wow,
think,
that would really give us a market edge.
right? My God, you'd have to be God to do that. But
Dude, God would be a sick coach. Boom, better husband.
God would not give a lot of external validation. She, whomever
They,
they would ask of us to do a lot of the work, which
I
is
wouldn't. I
ultimately in
wouldn't be into
service of
that.
your vision. I
Sorry,
know
God.
you just want
I
that
hate
knob to be
it.
turned down.
Boo.
So what is this leads us into our last principle, which is control the controllables.
Which is exactly that, right?
Right.
Like we sort of touched on it. Is that like if you can't control, like training often is a controllable that we can control. A lot of times we can control the things that we eat, the things that we consume, like whether it's media, social media, food. Create the space that you need to succeed and try to edit out the things that do not help you succeed, both in a training and life context. And don't worry about the stuff that you can't control, or try to worry less about it. I'm like a professional worrier, so not like saying do or don't is like not great for my gray area brain. Saying move towards a place where you fixate less on the fact that the world is spinning very fast and will one day be swallowed by the sun.
Yeah. I
Can't
think
control it.
I think if you struggle with this concept, and I think it is something that's more advanced, this is why it's kind of at the top of this pyramid. Think about drawing a big circle on a piece of paper and then a small circle in the middle of it that kind of looks like a donut.
Ooh.
And in the middle of that circle, write down the things you can control. For athletes, I love athletes to start with a couple of key things. You can control your attitude, what your attitude is every day when you show up. You can control your effort level, how much energy you're going to put into the training. You have direct control of that every day. You have control of your beliefs. You have control over your thoughts, and you have control over your actions. There's like 5 or 6 things I think I listed out there that can go in the middle of that circle. And then fill that rest of the outer circle up with all of the crap you cannot control, because it's everything else, from what other people think of you to arguments with your spouse or financial stress or tough situations at your job to, like race day conditions, environmental factors. That, like, the list of what we can't control is huge. But when we focus on what we can control, we can reclaim agency over what we can do in pursuit of our vision. And that's what's really powerful about that. I can decide how I'm going to show up every day. I have that power. Um, so think about that. I feel like that's a great thought to leave things on. Because when you're thinking about, well, how do I create my vision? How do I get to where I want to go? Like, not create the actual vision, but achieve my vision or some form of it, whatever it is. Well, it starts by recognizing that how I show up is under my control, the attitude I bring, the effort level I bring to this, and saying I'm committed to those things.
Would a control donut be a cronut?
Well, cronuts don't have a hole, right?
They can. The ones in yeah. They can have a hole.
They have a hole?
Yeah.
Oh,
Yeah.
yeah.
Your cronut of control.
Cronuts of control.
I love it.
And hot or not, cronuts of control.
Dude, I would slay for a cronut right now.
All right, guys.
I'm gonna give cronuts hot.
You're gonna give it that hot?
Yeah.
I'm into them. I had one a couple weeks ago. It was good.
Ooh, you had a cronut without me?
Yeah.
You know how much I love a cronut.
Shout out, bonfire.
Or in at the place in Telluride, they call them dosants.
Oh, I like that.
Yeah, it's cute.
All right, guys. Thanks for tuning in. If you've got a question for a future call, if you're looking for support in your running journey or endurance journey, we've got the people for you. Reach out, microcosm-coaching.com, microcosmcoaching@gmail.com. Thanks.